Thank you to everyone who's joined us for today's webinar. My name is Marissa Smith. I'm with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, and I am super excited for today's webinar, using data to understand your business with Dr. Tasha Hart-Mrema. Before I turn things over, I just want to make a couple of announcements. First, initiatives like our webinar series are made possible by our Alumni Association members. So if you're joining today's session as a member, thank you. And if you're interested in learning more about membership, you can do so on our website at umnalumni.org. Next, we are recording today's session as we do with all of our webinars, and we make them available after the session concludes on Goldmind, which is our hub for university and expert talks. So you can find today's session and also past webinars on similar topics that might be relevant to entrepreneurs and business owners on Goldmind. So definitely check that out, and we'll be sharing the recording of today's session with you all after the fact, so you can catch up on parts that you want to review or go through again. Now, last but certainly not least, I'm really excited to turn things over and introduce Dr. Tasha Hart-Mrema. As an industrial organizational psychology and human resource development practitioner, Dr. Hart-Mrema created Hart Holistic Strategies to help others start their businesses, streamline their services offered by existing businesses, and strengthen professional development initiatives. Dr. Hart-Mrema, thank you so much for being here. I will stop sharing my screen and turn things over to you now.
Thank you so much. I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you all as well. So just one moment. Okay. I hope you all can see my screen. If not, please raise your hand or say something and we'll get that fixed.
It looks great.
Great. Okay, great. So first, I am Dr. Tasha Hart-Mrema, as Marissa just explained, and I'm bringing this webinar to you as the second part of a two-part webinar series. And this one is about using data to understand your business. The purpose of this webinar is basically to kind of give you guys, and it's geared toward entrepreneurs, small business owners, and really anybody who's interested in learning more about how data is used in business. But it's mostly geared toward people in small to mid-sized businesses. And we're just gonna uncover some stuff on a conceptual level. So, as I said, I'm Dr. Tasha Hart-Mrema. This webinar actually stems from a course that I created in collaboration with David Baldwin of Endevelop Me. That course will be coming out very soon. We're in the process of having it beta tested, and it's about business planning and entrepreneurship. And so one aspect of the course is teaching people as they go through and develop their business plan, how to integrate data collection methods into your business plan. So when you start from the very beginning, you're already in the process of collecting data that's going to be used to help you as your business grows. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is data terminology for business, business intelligence and data mining. We're going to discuss the importance of understanding your target audience and your business needs. There will be discussion of key performance indicators, which are business metrics, practical data collection methods that are rooted in ethical data collection, because that's where the academic rigor comes in, while you're also meeting the needs for business. And then just understanding how collecting certain types of data can really help you not only improve your business, but save money. And I'll do that by just giving you a few examples of case studies of how certain types of data may be used. And at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. And I hope you guys have questions, and I hope I'll be able to answer them. So let's get started. At the forefront of this entire webinar is just us knowing that we need data. And we need data because it helps us to define what success is for our business. And it helps us to create an end-to-end strategy, meaning if we begin with the end in mind, what we want to know, it helps us go back and evaluate if we've actually met our goal. And so honestly, that's one of the important things about collecting data from the beginning of your business or your project or whatever initiative that you're taking on. understanding our data has a huge financial impact, a social impact, and it just helps us to create more practical processes within our business. So when we're talking about the terminology of using data in business, many of you have probably heard of data science because that's become a really big thing in the past couple of years, as well as data analytics. You hear people analytics, you hear data analytics, Google analytics, everybody's talking about analytics. And so if you're new to this, or even if you're not new, but you've been doing the same thing for so long, you're probably wondering what's new out there and what type of analytics are people talking about and what does that even mean? So I broke it down, and because statistics can get very complex, but statistics is the foundation for data science and data analytics, because statistics is the conceptual and foundational part of us running tests, gathering data, and running statistical analyses to actually see what this data is telling us. Data science is very broad. And you'll see if you've ever looked for jobs in these positions, you'll see data science is usually involving economics. Healthcare is social science. They're interested in machine learning techniques. It's very broad. They're using big data. They want large data sets that can tell us a lot of information. It just depends on the question that you're asking within the data. Data analytics is often used in jobs that are looking for business types of things. They're looking for market trends. They're looking for industry specific forecasting. We are looking for how are people using our services? How are people talking about us? What are their behaviors? So what we're going to focus on in this particular webinar is not necessarily data science, but the smaller baby portion of data science, which is data analytics. So when we go from thinking about data analytics, then we're going to talk about business intelligence, which is basically describing our business, what we know about it, how we can move forward with it. And then data mining, which is a technique to get a conglomerate of data. So business intelligence, we're looking at aggregate data. This is when you're looking at all the data, every website that you go to, they're tracking your usage. There, you'll probably get something that says, oh, this website tracks cookies. Well, you might not even know what that is, but what it is just a little thing that tells them that you were there. It tells them how long you were using it. And it helps, like, if you ever come back, they've already stored information about you and your usage statistics. So business intelligence is very broad. They use new technologies and they create systems of data, systems and mechanisms just to collect data. But it's more than just data collection. It's really how they make use of the data. It's descriptive. They want to know what's being done, what has been done, want to describe how it's being used so that you can make informed decisions. And so business intelligence is the broad thing that we're talking about, BI. Data mining is a technique for predictive modeling. Predictive modeling is focused on an outcome. It's not necessarily focused, well, it's not focused on what we know in the sense that that's all that matters. It's focused on what we know so that we can predict what's going to happen. So data mining is a technique used for discovering new knowledge and creating forecasts and classifications. And data mining is not necessarily something that small businesses would do at the outset, but if you know that you have growth potential, it is something that you would want to start considering, because to implement these types of processes, if you already have a whole lot of data and you don't know how to make sense of it, it will be hard to say, oh, let's go and, we have data mining techniques and technologies that we've been employing, but we don't know how to use this data. So a lot of small businesses don't even pay attention to these things, but it is something to consider, how you'll use it and if it's necessary. One of the ethical considerations of data collection is only collecting data and information that you'll actually use, and that the people you're collecting the information from are aware of in some capacity that you're using this information about them. And so we want to make sure that whatever information you're getting is information that's necessary for your business purposes. Hopefully your business purposes are ethical, but that's a different conversation as well. So when you say, well, I'm a small business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, even if you're a freelance consultant, you need to know your target audience. And the only way to know your business needs is to know your audience. And so the first thing with data collection would probably be learning about the demography of the people that you're serving, the communities that you're serving. This can include their ages, their race, their gender. You want to know the psychographic information, which includes their attitudes and thoughts. What do they value? When do they shop? Even socioeconomic status. Distribution channels. Are they mostly shopping online? Do they come in person? Do they shop between the hours of 6 and 10 p.m. because they get off of work at 5? So these are things that you really want to know for your business. But when you're selecting which information you want to know, like I said, just make sure it's something that you can actually use. If you know that it doesn't matter what time your customers are buying your products, then that wouldn't necessarily be something that you're looking at. But as we'll find out shortly, a lot of times when you're just starting out with data collection, you don't know what you're looking for. This is what we call exploratory. But yeah, so with your target audience, you want to know about their customer needs. Even if you're a consultant, you want to know about client needs. So you just want to make sure that you fully understand who your target audience is, what they want, how they operate, what they're most likely to see value in, because that's the only way to really give value to your people. And as we all know, that's what sells: value. Having something that people want, even if they don't necessarily need it. If they want it, they'll likely pay for it. And then the next thing, before we can get to understanding business needs, we had to do target audience. But now, as far as understanding our business needs, this is where we do customer research. We ask for feedback on how we can improve. We look at what our competitors are doing. We look at the financial goals and the software tools and those things. My apologies. My throat is a bit dry. So next we have key performance indicators. You guys have probably heard about KPIs. This is just an evaluation metric that we use to try and understand our business. A lot of these things can be built into your website. You probably heard of things like Google Analytics and all of those things. So different types of KPIs help us understand customer and market data, our sales data, and our financial data. So we learn about, the location of our customers. As far as sales data, we will learn about customer churn rates. How long do people keep using our service? Are our clients coming to us one time and then they're done after we give them a product or service? Do we have repeated customers? These are the things that you need to collect so that you can understand. Depending on your goals, these might be some of the KPIs that you look at. I'll say as far as financial data, you always want to look at your profit margins and your cash flow. Because that helps with risk reduction. It helps with understanding the way that your business is, actually the health of your business. The financial health of your business tells you a lot about the overall health of your business. So when you're looking at KPIs, the types of key performance indicators you're going to look for depend on the type of project and the type of outcome that you're hoping to understand. So when we're talking about statistics, as I said, we've talked about all the types of information, well, not all of them, but in a general sense, many of the types of information that we can collect for our business. Now we need to talk about, like when we're talking about statistics and what it really means, we need to understand these things. We have descriptive statistics, which align with business intelligence. This is when we describe our customers, their attitudes, and as part of descriptive statistics, we use frequency distributions, we use probabilities. These things tell us how often, it tells us the likelihood of something occurring. And then we have exploratory analysis, EDA, exploratory data analysis. This is when we're trying to uncover new insights. It's predictive modeling. It's us I think there's something there, but I just don't know what. And so this somewhat veers from traditional academic research to a certain extent. I'll say it veers in business because we're not testing a hypothesis. We're just saying, okay, I got all of this data because I know it's important. I just don't know how to make sense of it. So when we're conducting an exploratory analysis, we might run all types of tests. And then when you find out something, let's say I have a bunch of data about my customers and what time they shop. And I noticed that after analyzing the data, I see, oh, most of my customers shop, in the months of January, February, and March. But for some reason, I have very low volume of customers in April, May, and June. Well, then that might lead to the new question of course, I'm going to ask why. Depending on the data I've already collected, I may be able to go and see why, see if there's something there. If not, then I know the next time I reach out to my customers, maybe in January, February, and March, I can ask them if I'm creating some type of data collection instrument, why is it that you chose to shop here at this particular time, or you chose to use this service at this particular time? This is exploratory. You have information, you don't know what's there, you know it's important, and then once you find one thing, you have more questions that come. The next thing is confirmatory analysis, where we're just trying to confirm what we already think we know. This is where we're doing evaluation testing, hypothesis testing, and we're evaluating programs or initiatives that we implemented. So if I say that I believe that slashing prices on one of my products or services for 6 months is going to bring more customers in the same customer segment, then I'm going to conduct analysis. I'm going to actually slash my prices for 6 months for these customers. And then in 6 months, I'm going to go and I'm going to see, did more customers actually come in like we thought they would? And then from there, we know to move forward. If yes, more customers came, then we say, okay, this was a really good initiative. This worked out. If more customers did not come, now we know, go back to the drawing board. So it just depends on what you want to do. But I would say for business, starting out for business data collection and data analysis, you want to focus on descriptive, exploratory, and confirmatory. There are ways to jump into predictive modeling, but that is for forecasting, that's actually very important as well. I'll just say with you're starting from the very beginning of data collection, you want to focus on descriptive, exploratory, and then maybe confirming as things go further. So now we have methods of data collection, which is everybody knows when you're surfing the internet and you have the pop-up that says, we collect this information, or would you like to take a short survey? If you buy something and then you get an email later saying, hey, we're requesting your feedback, this is one of the most common ways to get data, even in academic research. And that's because it's very, very useful. There are limitations to surveys because a lot of people don't like them. Sometimes they'll start taking the survey and then they'll quit halfway through. So you only get half the data that you need. But this is something you should definitely consider implementing. There are closed-ended surveys, meaning can you rank on a scale of 1 to 5 how much you enjoyed this? There are open-ended surveys where they say, can you please tell us your thoughts on this? Or do you have any feedback regarding this? Both are very useful. And then there's the mixed methods where there's both open-ended and closed-ended. You just have to decide for yourself what type of information you want to collect. So the benefit of doing closed-ended surveys, meaning they just rank it, you're getting numerical data. So you're able to go and analyze and say, oh, 60% of the people who took this survey said that they ranked it a 5 out of 5. Versus if you're getting text data where they have to fill in the blanks, then somebody is going to have to read every single word that they wrote and then look for themes and patterns across the responses. So if you have a survey and 800 people take your survey and all of them wrote out text information, somebody has to read 800 responses for understanding themes and patterns. Now, I'll say in academic research, somebody has to read every last response. because that's what we call rigor. We want to make sure that we're accounting for everything. If you collect the data, you need to use the data. In business, what I've seen done for, as far as qualitative research, while yes, you are supposed to read every single response, once themes and patterns emerge, especially if you're getting big data because you had an open-ended question, maybe not every single response will be read in great detail, just enough that you are able to see the themes and patterns that have emerged. So surveys can, for your business, they can be simple or they can be very complex. And you have to think about who's going to analyze the data. If it's going to be you as a single person sitting down reading every response, that is great. If you have, 30, 40, maybe even 100 responses, it becomes far more difficult as a business owner if you're trying to read through thousands of responses. So you have to keep that in mind. And one of the ways to do these surveys is when you first have a customer, just as they're trying to buy something, if you're doing it online, you can ask them to fill out a quick survey. You guys have experienced this more than likely. So it can happen before or after a sale. And then another method of data collection is online analytics. What it's become so popular in the past decade for Google Analytics, social media analytics, all of these things are now built into a lot of the websites that we use. So nobody has to go and capture them because the algorithms and the coding of the websites, a lot of the features are already there. So you're able to just go in and see what's there. You get to set up your dashboard. This is true with if you're hosting a website on Squarespace, if you are using if you're using Google, if you're using Microsoft, there are already built-in analytics, and you're able to go and see the insights that are there. Now, how you make use of those insights is the important thing. And then the last thing will be customer relationship management systems. These are systems that are put into place mostly by mid to large size businesses that use a large amount of data. It's like, again, aggregate data, but it's aggregate data from different sources. So you're probably collecting data. You have people call in, okay, all of the information from how many people call in is being collected. If you have online chats, that information is being collected. If you're doing surveys, that information is being collected. You're using information from multiple sources to learn about all of your customers. The people who talk on the chat, are they more likely to call in? Are they more likely to, send emails? All of these things, any interaction that you have with your customer or client is used as a form of data that's being collected, processed, and stored for later evaluation. So again, that's more in line with, you see that in larger companies because that requires a lot of manpower. Like even if a lot of this stuff is automatic, a lot of the data collection is automatic, somebody still has to analyze it and make sense of it. So that's important. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but on each of these methods that I discussed, I say that transparency is needed. It is very important that as a business owner or even a customer, we like to know how our information is being used. And so there are a lot of laws and things being pushed to try to make sure that people are in control of their information. So when you're building these surveys and when you have a website, when you have emails and things put in place, make sure that you're creating a privacy policy that lets people know that you're collecting the information about them and how that information will be used. And also stick with what you're saying you're going to do regarding your privacy policy. So next we have we're goals and objectives when it comes to data collection or just even data analysis for our business. We want to create value, we want to save money, and we want to come up with some type of quality business endeavor where our brand is known for quality. This is really important, and data helps us get there. So the greatest thing about it, and actually using the data, because you can collect a whole lot of data and you don't use it, either because you don't know how to use it or because of the time constraints of using it. But value creation getting the right type of data can help us create a personalized customer or client experience. And it helps us as business owners and entrepreneurs to grow with our audience. As their needs and desires change, so should ours. As long as I'm not saying stray from your core business model, I want to make that clear. I'm saying that you should be able to adapt based on the feedback that you get. So you want feedback systems in place in order to have value creation. The next thing would be money saving. If you know when people are more likely to see your ads, you know when to pay for them to have them placed. You'll save a lot of money. I have one person that I knew who had a great business, and it was a very good idea, and it works very well for them. They were successful. But after looking at their business, they realized that a lot of times they were placing ads around 6 o'clock because they were thinking this is when people get off work and this is when they're scrolling their phone, you know, and so this is when they're more likely to see my ad. After looking at the data of people like ad clicks per minute and things like that, what they noticed was that the ad that got the most was the one midday. So they're like, oh, all of this time I've been putting money into placing my ads at 6 o'clock when the lunch break is when people actually pay attention to my ads. And so they were able to shift that, increase their profits because they got more sales, because more visibility. And then they also saved money because they stopped buying ads for the evening and placed them on the lunch hour. So there's money saving benefits to understanding your data and using your data. It helps us to understand the distribution channels and increase productivity. The distribution channels are like, if we're talking about advertisements, where are the advertisements being placed? Are they placed on Facebook? Are they placed on Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn? Or even if you're trying to see which vendor is the best vendor for you, data can help you understand that, can help you make an informed decision about that. And the last thing I'll say about this, and as far as goals and objectives, is quality business. That goes back to value creation. We want to make sure we're taking a holistic approach, a overview of everything regarding our business, especially everything that matters in the moment, so that we can continue to learn and evolve. We don't want to just focus on what might be, but what could be. So I gave you guys a few examples about possible use cases for data and how you'll use your data in data collection. I just have two examples. So if there's a person who wants to do market expansion, if it's a restaurant, a service-based industry, and they use market research to identify potential locations for their expansion. What would go into this would be actually looking to see, is the location good? How are businesses around this location doing? That's something that you want to pay attention to, right? So when you actually get all of this information, how are these businesses doing? What are some of the challenges that they face? And then you want to do that for multiple locations and you want to compare. Then you're able to successfully enter a new market with a tailored approach. And this particular client, they were able to do that. And they had a 25% increase in customer acquisition and brand recognition because they opened a second location. But they did it in the right location. So what I'm saying is there's just a lot of things to consider. I know we all have great ideas and we start and we're like, well, it seems clear, but when you really break it down, there's so much that can impact how we understand our business and how we move forward with our business. Another example would be trying to provide a personalized customer experience if you're an e-commerce store. Think Etsy and even Amazon. There are a lot of online stores that you can, create. So if you want to understand your customer behavior, when are they shopping, how much are they willing to spend for my products, it would also be very helpful to know their socioeconomic status. Like if you're selling things based on a hobby or a want rather than a need, it's important to know, do the people I'm actually marketing to have the funds to actually splurge on these things? So this type of information is necessary. And for this particular client, they were able to implement personalized recommendations, and they had a 20% increase in order value and a 15% increase in customer retention. going back to what I said about customer churn, a lot of times if you're in the business of sales, like you're selling a product, you really want customers that are going to keep coming back. Repeat customers, it's always great to get new customers, but it's just like increased turnover at your job. People constantly quitting is not necessarily something that makes the business run smooth. You want people that you know are going to constantly come back to you. And then the next thing would be to see, well, how often do they come back and how can we get them to come back more? All of this may seem like a lot, but it's a really good way to start thinking about when you first start your business, and even after you've already started your business, now what do I do? Right? So a lot of the things I wish I knew going into it, and I have people tell me they wish they knew these things as well. Business planning, which is a large part of the first webinar in this series, as well as the business planning and entrepreneur course. You do not skip the process. Make sure you understand that planning is ongoing because nobody plans to fail. They fail to plan. Okay. So financial management, you want to make sure that you understand your business and your money because the financial health of your business is the health of your business. And you want to make sure you do market research. These things are ongoing. And of course, we want to always focus on the legal and regulatory requirements. And that's regarding data collection as well. I do encourage everybody to, whether you're going to do the data collection and data analysis yourself or not, you want to make sure that all of this stuff is being done in an ethical manner, because who needs those types of scandals, right? You don't want to be known as the company that abused somebody's information. It just opens yourself up to a whole lot of unnecessary challenges as far as your business goes. So just keep those things in mind. Oh, a good resource would also be, I am affiliated with the University of Minnesota because I got my doctorate from there. But you can Google IRB, which is Institutional Review Board, and just see some of the guidelines and ethical considerations that they actually take into account when they're deciding whether or not they're going to approve research. So that'll help you know if you're doing things the right way. And there are specific steps you can take, even with developing your data collection methods. Like if you're going to do a survey or a questionnaire, you might want to do a little bit of background research before developing those so that you can know not only what type of information to collect, but how to word that information so that you're actually getting information that meets what you're trying to find out. Because the way you word a question can dictate the way that it's responded, someone responds to it. So you should keep that in mind as well. As with all things business related, I'll say begin with the end in mind because uncertainty will always exist. There is no guarantee in business. Your business model absolutely matters, but the only way to fully know if your business model works is to look at the data. A lot of people will start looking at the financial data first because that tells us, okay, we made a profit. So my business model must be working. And then I'll say once you move beyond that and just making sure your business model is sustainable, start with customer research. What do they want? What do they need? Why do they need this? Am I able to give them this? What does that mean for my business? And then we go back to financial again. Can I afford to do this? Can I afford not to do this? And don't waste your data. A lot of times people say, small business owners and entrepreneurs will say, okay, well, I have a website, I have this, I have a social media page. They don't realize that those things have built-in analytics that you can go and see your web traffic. Who is visiting your website? How often are they visiting your website? How long do they stay on your website? On your website, how many pages are they visiting? You understand? So it's so many different things that you can look at, and you want to make sure that you're not wasting it. You don't want to collect a whole lot of data and you've never even used it when you could have been making money, saving money, and increasing your value as a business. That's all I have for you. So I want to open the floor up for questions. I hope that I'm able to answer them. Let me know.
Dr. Hart-Mrema, thank you so much for sharing that presentation with us. And as we wait for the first few questions to come in, folks, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom to share your questions. I'll go ahead and start. I'm curious, in your experience as a small business owner, kind of what data do you lean on a regular basis, and kind of what's made the difference for you?
For me as a consultant, and I provide outsourced HR services and even statistical consulting, the data that I rely on is typically understanding what my clients think they need. Because I do have several people come to me and they say, "Oh yeah, I want to start a business," or I have a business and I need this thing." And then it turns out after I'm looking at it, I'm like, "No, you don't need this thing." So one of the things that I focus on for my own client solicitation and helping my clients is what industry they're in, because that helps me. I am a quantitative researcher at heart, but for business purposes, qualitative is when, as I was explaining, the open-ended questions. So one of the things I've noticed with my own clients, I'm using experience, which will be a qualitative method, to help me make sense of my client needs. And then I do have them fill out forms to tell me, based on the project that we worked on, what was your experience? What did you like about it? What do you think could have been improved? So I am more of an after the fact person in my own business, only because each client I have, they have different needs.
That's great perspective. I have a question here from an attendee. It says, in general, how often do you pay for proprietary data sets versus public versus client's own internal data?
I have not actually paid for a data set ever. I do know a client that did, but that was because they were they were in the IT industry, specifically trying to do a competitor analysis. And they wanted to know certain information. So I think it depends on the situation and it depends on the industry. What I often tell people, even my own clients, most of the time, the data is publicly available, because the U.S. Census Bureau has a whole lot of information. If you have any type of access to a library, there are so many articles on customer research that literally tell you about customer behavior. You just have to know your industry. So I haven't actually paid for it, but I do know people who pay for those data sets. But a lot of times that's because their goals are very specific. Like I said, that particular client wanted to know what was being done in the industry because they were coming up with something. So they needed proof of concept, and they were just trying to analyze that data so that they can create proof of concept, go to investors and say, "Look, this is what the data shows." So it just depends.
So I have another question, and again, we still have some time here. So if others have questions, please do submit them. But mine is, in my experience working with business analytics and with data, it's like you answer your first question and then it leaves you with 5 more questions.
Yes.
And very quickly you can become a data dragon, is what I've heard it called. Kind of what are your thoughts on that, and sort of how do you balance that in your work with your clients?
Okay, first, I love that. That's why when I was talking about exploratory data, and that's why it's in that order: descriptive, exploratory, and confirming. There are predictive models, but that's a ways away. I think it's actually very important to be open-minded when you're going into your data and you're exploring, especially if you are a small business or a medium-sized business and you're new at this. It's okay to have multiple questions, even if you can't answer them all, because sometimes the amount of data that you have doesn't allow you to answer them all, but it gives you insight into what to ask for next. So I think for me, that's the way. There are time constraints, because I've had one client in particular where he had something really great. And I was like, we really need to embed a survey into this because we can get so much cool stuff. And he was just like, "No, that's not what I'm doing." Like, I don't have time for this. So it depends on time constraints, but I say be open to it. And I did encourage him to collect the data, and he finally did. He was like, okay, fine, you can put the survey. And if you want to do it, you can, but that's not the focus. And you have to keep that in mind too, because when you're trying to meet a bottom line, that has to be met before you can go have fun and explore with your data. But don't forget about your data. Don't forget about the 5 questions that came from your one, because those are important questions.
That's great. No, thank you. Dr. Hart-Mrema, is there anything else that you want to share? Any kind of key takeaways you hope that folks have from today's session?
My primary takeaway is don't collect data that you will not use. Um, it's just the ethical thing. You want to make sure that if you're getting this information from people, even if it's collected automatically, you can also turn off certain tracking features. So just make sure whatever data you're collecting, that there is some use for it, whether you're using it today, tomorrow, or 2 years from now. Just make sure you're not collecting more information than you need.
That's a really, really helpful insight. And, while you were answering that final takeaway piece, a question did come in from a participant, which is around software. Is there any software that you use or recommend folks use for data mining or modeling?
Data mining, no. Data modeling, sure. It depends. So I see the question is about if you're not data savvy. Um, People who are not data savvy, especially those related to business, love to see data visualizations. So a lot of people use Tableau. I am kind of old school. I still use Microsoft Excel. Um, a lot of times it's affordable if you have Microsoft already on your computer. And as far as the actual statistical analyses, I'm going to assume if you're not data savvy that you're not really interested in coding. So I would use a software like IBM SPSS or even Excel, because those are the type of softwares where you just click a button and then you tell it to run a test. Now you have to make sure your data set is good enough for that, but you can just click a button and it will give you the information that you need. A lot of times too, if you're not data savvy, truly, when you're collecting your feedback, especially if it's via a survey, the survey platforms already have built-in analysis tools. So it'll just show you your descriptives. Like for one is Qualtrics. When you get a survey in Qualtrics, and I think SurveyMonkey is the same way, when you get all of your data and you go, Microsoft Forms does the same thing, and so does Google. It'll show you how many % of people answered the question in this way versus that way. So it gives you very basic descriptives. I would say start with that. Because it's very simple. Now, if you're trying to see correlations where you're actually running a statistical test, then you would need something a little more advanced, and I would suggest SPSS. If you're okay with coding, a lot of people use R or Python for things like that.
All right, Dr. Hart-Mrema, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much again for sharing your insights with the alumni audience today. And I hope everybody that joined us enjoyed the webinar as much as I did. And thank you for joining us.
Okay, I want to say thank you to everybody. If you all need to reach me, you can reach me at Thmrema at hartholistics.com. That is Thmrema at hartholistics.com. And you can also visit my website and learn more about what I do at www.hartholistics.com. That is Hart, Hart, holistics.com. Thank you.